In his lecture, Dr. John Kesler-Cate addresses the question posed by Alan Doig in 1999, is there a God-shaped hole in contemporary art? He defends Langdon Gilkey's argument for art's potential to fill the absence of meaning in a secular culture. He uses his knowledge of contemporary art within the church to do this. He also critically defines what it means to be Christian in regards to art, and he addresses aesthetics and the religious backgrounds of artists as well. He argues that overtly Christian art is limiting, and it inhibits progressive thinking and creativity. A senior clergyman once proposed 3 different qualities that needed to be taken into account when looking for or commissioning visual arts within cathedrals. And he didn't just say that they need to be taken into account, but they could be negotiated. The first was aesthetic quality, the second was clear Christian symbolism, and the third was accessibility. And each of these is can either seem very limiting or they can seem very open-ended. And Dr. John Kesler-Cate argues that these are unlikely demands of non-ecclesiastical works, and so churches should be equally open-minded. And there's evidence that they are. For instance, when we look at some contemporary art that's been used within cathedrals, they are not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, and they are also not necessarily symbolically clear. And they are also not hermeneutically unchallenging. Kesler-Cate makes his final statements within the philosophical framework of French philosopher Alain Badiou. Badiou's philosophy requires truth in a set of conditions: science, politics, art, and love. It is worth noting that religion is not one of these conditions. Each of these areas has a specified language, traditions, history, practices, and theory that helps us to understand truth. The environment in which these instituted forms of knowledge are operative as recognized fields of reference is called the situation. The emergence of something with no proper place within the situation is what Badiou calls an event. Kesler-Cate highlights a key point in Badiou's philosophy. Art generates its own truth. Art is like a continuation of events that have no place within the situation, and this is especially true of contemporary art. Art events present the viewer with the unconventional and unexpected to rework the situation of ecclesiastical works of art. In conclusion, Kesler-Cate suggests that centuries of artists have tried to fill the void, that is, the unrepresentability of God. God is the very site of the void, and the vacuum at the center of the contemporary Western culture is where artists and theologians find common ground. Kesler-Cate's presentation of contemporary works within the church setting was rather eye-opening. He spoke of many recipients of the Art and Christianity Inquiry Award, or ACE Award, and this particular piece surprised me the most. The neon signage that reads, "I felt you and I knew you loved me," is a creation by the famous controversial British artist Tracey Emin. I only remember Tracey Emin as the young artist who had hand-stitched the names of everyone she ever slept with on a blue tent, including the name of her aborted child, as well as for the installation My Bed, which was surrounded with the evidence of a tumultuous personal life, including worn underwear, used condoms, and tissues. I agree with Kesler-Cate's connections between this piece and at the Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool and the 3 qualities for visual art in cathedrals. On an aesthetic level, it is similar to the electric signage found in any public institution, and it is an unconventional material for fine art. On a symbolic level, the nuances in the hand-lettered script add a note of intimacy, like a prayer. Accessibly speaking, its placement with Carl Edwards' colorful windows creates a sincere and tender statement. Kesler-Cate shows several examples of religious artwork created by non-believers, and because of what little I knew about Emin, I figured her work fit in the same category, though it would be hard to believe because of the sincerity of this message. In a statement made by Neil Brown for the White Cube Gallery in London, I learned that Emin considers herself a deist, a religionary artist who seeks to reconcile her life's joys and pains through art, into the proper relationship with her originating creation. She understands the human need for celebration and consolation, and these are the comforts given by the Church. She says she needs art like she needs God. In the case of this neon sign, it seems plain to me how the secular whole of society has been creatively filled by Emin with love. Here is a timeline of the modern and contemporary artwork within cathedrals mentioned by Kesla Kate. Feel free to pause and take a look at it at your own pace.
William Dearness' points in this chapter are: art has lost unity with any sense of the sacred and therefore has lost direction and function. The meaning of high and fine art and the challenge of separating yet integrating it. Modern and contemporary art's role and the struggle with reintroducing sacred into their work. Religion needs to be integrated with art to promote healing, and art must tell the Christian story. Dearness believes that the core commitments of religion are that the Christian story focuses on God's love and his purposes for creation and even for human society. But my concern with this statement is that the definition sounds a little bit more like a simple children's version of a Bible summary than the complex story of Christianity. Dearness also states that early Christians believe that creativity was only reserved for God, and therefore to call one's work or style creative was blasphemous. He writes that during the Renaissance period, the function of painting was to represent human life in divine figures in order to emulate the highest form. It was not created for either instruction or pleasure. I believe that the statement's a little bit contradictory because the main function of painting during the Renaissance movement was to teach biblical story, scripture, and of course the spreading of the message of Jesus Christ through images. The definition of fine art and high art by William Dearness is: high art distinguishes by hierarchy of subject matter and the sophistication of its means from the popular arts of the people. Fine art, of course, involves training and specialization. Thomas Crow distinguishes fine art from art with simple, wide appeal as fine art is highly specialized activities that require considerable learning and patience by application from its practitioner and primary audience. Through the chapter, Dearness introduces a brief chronological analysis of modern art and transition into postmodernism, but I'm only going to go over 3 periods for time purposes. I'm going to go over Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Abstract Expressionism. During the 19th century, modern art shed symbolical and mythological content to focus more on form, elements of design, and color. And the role was, of course, contemplation. Impressionists were no longer symbolic, and they struggled with surface tension and a need for deeper meaning as well as with autonomous form while featuring a broader content. Post-Impressionists really focused more on vivid color while struggling between surface and depth and the use of nature and symbolism. Post-Impressionists really needed to convey a deeper sense of things while retaining that symbolic meaning. Expressionism eliminated the boundaries between high and low culture. Like the Surrealists, they wanted a break from the oppressive bonds of restrictive religions, and they used their dreams, subconscious thoughts, and images to create a free-flowing super reality. It mostly focuses on the actual process of externalizing consciousness rather than the result of the painting. The artist really struggled between the inner and outer meaning of the artwork. Is that art has lost the unity with the sacred, and it has resulted in the artist's struggle with direction and function. Reintegration of spiritualization and the story of Christianity will promote healing between religion and contemporary art. In Professor Elkin's book, he shares his experience with a student named Brian who feels that artists are alienated from religion. Therefore, in his art, he kind of liked to stir up debate. This is an example of a controversial piece that is titled Immersion, or Piss Christ, and it's from Andre Serrano. And what it actually is a photograph of a plastic crucifix that was submerged within the artist's urine. The piece was vandalized by an attacker who wanted to protest the connotation of pissing on a cross bearing a crucified Jesus. However, the meaning behind immersion was actually a condemnation of the billion-dollar Christ industry. This, of course, is what it looked like after it was cracked with a hammer. Elkins illuminates his point by saying that the best-known anti-religious artists aren't really against religion. Elkins' other key points suggest that there are two different kinds of religious critical contemporary art. The first one is the most destructive because it rejects all ideas of religion. However, the second is a little bit more common, and its role is to simply reconsider the ideas of religion. And he also points out that there's a call of action in developing or researching an awareness of the artist's logic. The way society can credit art pieces like immersion with the task of rethinking and questioning ideas is really what he wants his focus to be. He uses this example of art as a rejection of ideas. This seemingly innocent painting of the Virgin Mary was photographed. The photographer alleged that the images in her eye were reflective of a human form. In addition to it brewing a lot of renewed interest in the painting, various theories of speculation on the possibility of who the human figure or figures were became highly speculative and quickly evolved kind of outlandishly. One theory was that it was the bearded image of Christ which was ingrained in her eye on the day of his execution. American artist Jeffrey Valance took the image findings a little bit further and kind of poked fun at such notions. He suggested perhaps it was Bigfoot, and he provided satirical, technical, and textual justifications for his different theories. And here's an example of that on the right of the picture of one of the things that he submitted in his attempt to make fun. Elkins argued that Valance attempted to discredit Christians and the intelligence of those who believed it was the Christ of image. But I'm concerned with Elkins' accusations towards Valance's statement because he sort of snubs the idea that the artist may have a deeper meaning, which is sort of hypocritical to his earlier statements in the chapter. I don't believe that Valance was rejecting religion. I think that he was asking us to reconsider it. He was not suggesting that we lose faith in God, just to look at miracles in real life, not in the wild imagination of a photographer or divine-starved people. I think I'd rather have seen another example of his idea of rejecting religion. Elkins also writes about the symbolism in the matter of crosses and swastikas. He points out that the cross and swastika had different meanings to current and past theorists, and crosses and swastikas and the ubiquitous universal crowdings with symbolic meanings. Here's just a few examples of who he uses to support his theory. You can stop the presentation to read them now or later. But what I really wanted to say about this was Elkins used these theories to illuminate his philosophy of the symbolic perspective of the swastika. However, he dismisses his student Brian's belief that religious symbolism is illogical. My concern with Elkins' theory support is he excluded early modern Westerners and past and current Easterners' perspectives who see the swastika as a mark of prosperity, health, safety, and good luck. Elkins says that the swastika was an accidental configuration of hatchets in this particular piece of artwork, which is the Hours of Catherine of Cleves. However, the benevolent insignia can be tracked back to ancient times and in direct reference to Christian symbolic adornment. A tiny sample of historical evidence and the use of the motif. There's a picture of a 1913 Boy Scout handbook, a configuration of the swastika in the San Diego military base and an American World War I fighting plane. There's a Renaissance painting of a priest wearing the symbol on his attire while he's ministering to a dying man. And there's photographs that span from the 1920s of Clara Bow, who's modeling the swastika style clothing, and there's a pope, as well as all the way back to ancient Greek mosaic. So my summary of Elkins is that there are two different types of anti-religious art. We can only understand and distinguish these works by developing or researching an awareness of the logic of the artist. And most anti-religious art is not meant to harm, but to question religion. There's a strong sense of power in the use of symbolism and in religion and society, which requires further explanation. Daniel Seidel's points in his book are: contemporary art is the beginning to reconcile with religion, spirituality, and the sacred. There is a rise in both discourse and interest in understanding religion through art. Icons are draped with contextual meaning. Contemporary installations allow viewers to experience and understand art within an environment that illuminates its meaning. No object is autonomous, stable, or passive. And artists use their body to connect to ideas of presence and absence. Seidel argues that for the last 25 years, great progress has been made due to the efforts of contemporary art and religious art historian scholars such as Elkins, Morgans, and Deduve, who have opened discourse for valid exploration. And society has also shown a great interest in discovering religious meanings behind contemporary art, which is quite evident with the expansion of museum exhibits such as May Cranston and John Baldari's 100 Artists See God, and Basin Jacobs' collaboration Awake, which is titled Art, Buddhism, and Dimensions of Consciousness. Seidel compares the purpose of Jackson Pollock and Marcel Duchamp's work and its relationship between material and the spiritual sense. The art explores the potentiality for relationships with objects, practices, and environments. These findings were that no object can be autonomous, stable, or passive. On this slide, I included two links if you'd like to further understand the bicycle wheel, as well as there's kind of a cool interview with Duchamp. Contemporary installation and performance artists take the idea of object and environment to a greater degree of intensity and a stronger concentration of contextual experience. Seidel supports his theory by quoting Acts. It is our responsibility to follow the lead of the apostle and walk around and look carefully at these objects of worship. Artists with a desire for a return to sacred iconic origins or religious beginnings use their body to convey this. In the performance piece by James Lee Beyer, he is covered up and surrounded by gold to represent medieval iconic paintings. At the end of the performance, Beyer disappears into the holy sea of silence and dies. This is a perfect example of how artists use human form to connect on a Christian level and bring awareness to the ideas of presence and absence. Seidel believes the resistance from accepting this piece as religious art in the churches shows that they are hesitant to trace the icon, to quote him, as through the didactic approach of Luther to the downright purely iconoclastic bent of modern Anabaptists. He states that this is the main goal of his work, which is outlined within this book. The summary of the readings is: contemporary art relationship with religion, spirituality, and the sacred is the result of a rise in both discourse and interest in understanding religion through art. There is a great importance to understanding contextual meaning, experience, and environment because no object is autonomous, stable, or passive.